If you've ever wanted to make papercraft projects with your Cricut Joy, but you weren't sure how to get started, then this video is for you. Hello and welcome to Craft with Sarah. In this video, I'm showing you how you can make layered papercraft projects with multiple colours using your Cricut Joy machine. I'll show you step by step how to make this adorable little heart, which is 3 separate colours in total. Together we'll see how to upload the SVG file into Cricut Design Space, how to change the colour of the pieces should you wish to cut it in different colours, how to resize it, and most importantly, how to get all the pieces cut on your Joy machine. Then at the end I'll show you how to stick it all together, including what to use to get a lovely dimensional look between the pieces. If you're using a different type of Cricut machine, such as a Joy Xtra or a Explore Air 2, Explore Air 3, Maker or Maker 3, or if you have a different brand of cutting machine entirely, such as a Silhouette or a Scan and Cut, then head to craftwithsarah.com/help. On that page, you can choose your machine type, and then there'll be a separate version of this same tutorial, but one that's set up for your particular type of machine. But if you're using the original Cricut Joy, these lovely little blue machines, you're already in the correct place, so let's get started. The first part of this video is the same no matter what type of cutting machine you're using. Once you've chosen the file that you want to make and you've downloaded it, whether it's from craftwithsarah.com or another source, you'll probably find that it comes as a zip folder. You'll need to unzip this or uncompress it before you can upload the cut file into your cutting machine's software. The instructions for doing that are a little bit different if you're on a Windows computer, a Mac, or a mobile device. On a Mac, you can usually just double-click on the zip folder to unzip it. I'll show you how to do it on a Windows computer, which is what I'm using shortly. If you're using a mobile device, whether it's Android or iOS, head to craftwithsarah.com/help, and on that page is a link to a more detailed video and tutorial on how to unzip folders on all those different types of devices. If you're on a Windows computer, find your zip folder. It will probably be in your Downloads folder. Right-click on it and press Extract All. Choose where you want to save it on your computer and then press Extract. You can see that's made a copy of the folder, only this time it doesn't have the zip on the picture, it's showing an open folder and it doesn't end .zip in the file name. So this is the one I want to use when I'm getting the file into my cutting machine software. Next, it's time to upload the SVG file into Cricut Design Space. Again, this is the same no matter what type of Cricut machine you're using. If you'd like a tutorial on how to upload using the mobile app version of Design Space, again, head to craftwithsarah.com/help, choose Cricut Machine from the list of machine options, and there's a separate tutorial in there. Click New Project at the start, and then Blank Canvas. Or a slightly easier way to do it is just to press Canvas on the top left of the screen, and that will open a blank project for you. Go into Upload along the left and then press the green button that says Upload Image. You can then either click Browse to find the file on your computer, or you can drag and drop it in. Make sure you choose the unzipped version of the download folder. If you're using one of my free SVGs or one of my newer designs, then you'll see a folder structure which looks something like this. You've got a 00 instructions file at the top, and then it goes down in numerical order with lots of different options. If you're using a Cricut machine, it's super easy because there's a folder in there called 01 Cricut version. That's really the only file that you'll need apart from the instructions and the assembly guide, and also you might want to keep these other 3 too. But you can delete, if you want to, the 02, 03, 04, 05 and 06 folders if you'd rather save some space on your computer, because if you've got a Cricut, you just need the one that says 01 Cricut version. If you're using one of my older designs, the file structure looks a little bit different and you'll only see a few files in the download folder. If that's the case and that's what you're seeing, make sure you choose the file that starts SVG in the file name. That's the one you need for Cricut machines. The SVG might be in lowercase letters or it might be in uppercase. That doesn't matter as long as you choose the one that starts SVG, that's the correct one to use. But if you're using one of the newer files, then what you want to do is go into that 01 Cricut version folder, and then within there will just be one file and it will start SVG-01 in the file name. That's the right one you want to choose. So I click and drag that in and it will look like this. So it looks like a completed picture, but don't worry, once it's uploaded onto your project, you'll be able to see all of the different pieces that make up the design and all the different layers. Press continue. And then on this screen, if you want to, you can name your image or add it to a collection. I'm not going to do that. I'll just go straight ahead and press upload, and then it will insert onto your project. To see the different layers that are making up this design, you can click the arrow next to it in the layers panel, and that will then show all the pieces. I've chosen this design for this video as it's quite simple with only 4 different layers and it's 3 colors. So you'll be able to see as you follow along with me how we can cut different colors from cardstock with a Cricut machine. If you want to change the color of any of the layers, you can do that by clicking on them in the layers panel. Make sure you've just got the one layer that you want to change the color of. And then in the drop down here, click the color, and then you can choose any of the colors in here to change it. If I move this over, it'll be a bit more obvious. You can also click advanced, and then you can drag and drop to get a wider range of colors. But I'm going to put mine back to that original red and cut this in those 4 colors so it matches. The next thing to do is to make sure you've got the correct machine selected in Design Space. Look over here on the top right of the screen and click into it to get a drop down of all the different types of Cricut machine. For this video we're using the Cricut Joy, so that's the one I'm going to select. Here's how you can resize the design if you'd like to make it bigger or smaller. Click on it to select it and then make sure the padlock icon is closed. If yours is open, you can click it to close it. And that means you can change either the width or the height, press enter on your keyboard, and then the other measurement will change in proportion. Now you might have noticed when I did that, I got a red exclamation mark in my layers panel. If I click that, it says not supported by Joy, image too large, reduce image size to 4.5 inches by 48 inches or less. So the Cricut Joy machines are very, very small, and that's what this machine is telling me. It's saying I've made this too big to be able to fit in the machine. Anything you cut in the Joy needs to be a maximum of 4.5 inches on the shorter side. So I could change it to 4.5 inches tall and 5 inches wide, and then that little exclamation mark has gone, which means that this would be okay to cut. But I'm actually going to do it in the same size it loaded in at, which is a little bit smaller, so 4 inches wide and 3.6 inches tall. To save your project so that you don't lose any changes that you've made, you can press save at the top, give it a name in here, let's call it Heart Cricut Joy. If you want to, you can add it to a collection, which is basically putting it in a folder to make it easier to find another time, but I'm not going to worry about that, I'll just hit save. Make sure your Cricut Joy is plugged in and turned on, and then when you're ready to start cutting, press the Make button over on the top right of the screen. After pressing Make, you'll notice that all of the different colours are split out down the left side of the screen. Yours might show a little bit differently depending on what's been auto-selected in this Material Load Type dropdown. If yours is looking more like this, then make sure under Material Load Type you change it to On Mat. Because we're cutting cardstock, we always need to make sure we're cutting on the mat. If yours looks like this, and you're seeing this little shape here with a triangle at the top in the middle, and it says card mat on the left hand side, that's the wrong type of mat too. This type of mat is used for making insert cards or cutaway cards, which is not what we're doing in this video. So just make sure it says On Mat, and it should look like this. There are 2 different types of size of Cricut Joy mat. There is this one, which you can see here is just over 6 inches tall, or in material size you can change it if you've got one of the larger mats, which are 12 inches tall. It doesn't matter which one of those you've got as long as your shapes will fit onto the mat. I'm using a 12-inch tall one for this video. Go through each of the colours and make sure that you've got the material load type set to on matte and that you've got the right size material selected. If you want to, you can click and drag to move things about to use up less space on your cardstock. Just make sure when you're moving that none of the shapes overlap, otherwise they won't cut out properly. Sometimes with the Cricut Joy, I find that it doesn't quite take notice of the top line, and sometimes it can cut a little bit too low down. So what I like to do is just move everything slightly further down than Design Space puts it by default. We're talking just a few millimeters, but generally I find that ends up getting a more reliable cut. When you're happy with how everything is looking, press continue to connect to your Joy. The Joy will cut whichever mat is showing with the light background. So for me at the moment, it's my third one, my pink one. I prefer to cut in number order, so to do that, click back to the number 1, and then this will be the one that cuts first, my white one. The reason I like doing it at number 1 first is that then it will automatically move it up one number each time, so it's a little bit easier to know you're putting the right colour of cardstock on the mat at the correct time. It's awful if you just cut something out and then realise you've done it from the wrong colour. But now I know, because this one is the lighter colour, this is what's going to be cut first. The 3 cut settings I use most often with my Cricut Joy are medium cardstock, heavy cardstock and light cardstock. I vary it a little bit based on the particular brand of card I'm using, or if I'm using more like paper rather than actual card, then I would go for the lighter one, but most typically I use the heavy cardstock setting. To find those settings, click Browse All Materials and then type cardstock into the search and press enter. And then you can select them from here. There's heavy, light and medium. To bookmark these settings so that you don't need to search for it every time, click the little flag and it will go green, and that means whenever you're looking under the bookmark settings, those will appear for you. I'll choose heavy cardstock. If you want the blade to put more pressure so it will cut a bit deeper, or less pressure so it will cut a little bit less deep, then you can select that in there, but I tend to keep it on default. If you're going to be using the same type of card for all of the colours, then you can press Remember Material Settings so that you don't have to click it every time. Have a little look down the screen and see what it's telling you to do next. It's telling me to load the fine point blade into the machine, which is the blade that it comes with, and then to load the mat. So let's take a look at loading the cardstock onto a Cricut Joy mat and then how to put it into the machine. I've got my Cricut Joy ready and waiting, and here is my Cricut mat. As I said, this is the 12-inch one, but if you've got a smaller one, that's fine too. Take off the protective layer, and then underneath it will be all sticky. For cardstock projects, a light grip mat seems to work best, but for the Cricut Joy, I have found that the mats for the Joy seem less sticky than for any other type of Cricut machine. So if you do have the green standard grip mat instead, that can actually work better. So it's up to you on those ones, but I've only got a light grip one and mine is very much losing its stick. So I'm hoping it will be okay for this project. Get your colours of card. I've got my 3 here. And then you might also need a pair of scissors or a paper trimmer or guillotine or a craft knife and a cutting mat, because if you're using standard size paper, it's probably going to be too big for your cutting mat. So you can see this bit here, it's too large. You can't have any bits of card overlapping the edges of your cutting mat, otherwise it won't fit into the machine. And in fact, you should also try to make it so that you don't have any of your card on these edge bits that aren't sticky. So I'm going to trim this down so that it'll fit. You don't need to be super neat, so it's not going to be a perfect straight line. But as long as it fits and you make sure you've got enough on there that the picture on the screen of where the layer is going to cut out will all be covered, then we're good. If you've got a brayer tool, this is really helpful for cardstock projects because you can push your material down really securely. A rolling pin from the kitchen would work well too, or you can use a scraper tool. Scraper tools are also really helpful for getting any leftover bits of card off of the mat. This is a particularly large one. Most of them are about half the size, but it doesn't matter what size it is. It does the same job. Alright, so I've got my white loaded onto the mat. Let's bring in the Cricut Joy. To load the mat, I'm going to push it under these two little white bits and then touch it up against the grey rollers on the left and right. And then hold it once it's touching and the machine will automatically take the mat in. We'll try and do it in one smooth motion, which works best. So you can get started by just tucking it under, and then in one smooth motion I'm going to push it up and touch those rollers. Alright, mine's complaining at me because it hit into the cable so it couldn't load properly, so I'm going to try that again. So I'm just going to hold my cable out of the way and load that in again. So tuck it under. You might find sometimes that it starts rolling before you've touched it up against it, which that just did. If that's the case, just wait and just make sure that it hasn't said on the computer screen that it's loaded. Okay, third time lucky. I've tucked my cable around the front this time so it shouldn't catch on the mat. Here's my mat all loaded and there we go. That's what it's supposed to do. This is now ready to cut, so I need to switch back over to the computer screen. Now that the mat's loaded, this number 3 option here has come up and it says click go. So that's what I'm going to do. As soon as I hit this button, my Joy is going to start cutting my cardstock. It's now cutting the outline of the heart. Don't worry if it does the whole outline and then does it again if you're using a heavier cut setting. My mat is not very sticky, so I'm just going to push that back down. I need a new one really, but I very rarely use my Cricut Joy. So you see that's doing it twice. It's because I set it to the heavy cardstock setting. I probably could have got away with just doing it once, because that has definitely cut through. Alright, that's all finished now, so I need to go back to the computer and unload the mat. I can push the unload button here, and that will spit the mat out for me. Unfortunately with the Joy, there's no way to get it to cut again, so if you found that hadn't cut all the way through, you would need to try it again and put a different bit of cardstock on your mat. You could try putting the same one in again, but it very rarely cuts in exactly the same place, so you'll probably find that doesn't give you the result you're hoping for. But this one has cut lovely. The best way to take your cardstock off of the mat is to not pull it off like this, because that can cause the cardstock to sort of bend or roll upwards and not lie flat, and that will affect your finished project. Instead, turn your mat upside down, start bending it gently backwards, and then use your hand to hold the cardstock flat along your work surface and pull the mat off of the cardstock instead of pulling the cardstock off the mat. Alright, so there's that one done, and because I had not good luck with that sticking, I'm going to turn my mat upside down this time and try this side. My screen in Design Space has moved on to the red, so let's get some red card. You can see I've already been using this for other projects. So again, I'm going to cut. That's a little bit too wide still on that side. I'll put it on here. What you can do if you don't have a very sticky mat like I don't, is to add some washi tape or similar down the edges to hold it on to the mat. I don't think I've actually got any anywhere close to me right now, so I'm just going to put it through and cross my fingers that it doesn't come off, but I really need to get myself a new mat. Alright, so now let's take a look at how the screen looks in Design Space. If we take a look at the white, which we've already cut, it's now got a tick on that top left to show that it has been cut. And the screen has automatically moved me onto the next colour, which is the red. I know that because this has now got the light coloured background. So once again, it's telling me to load the normal blade. That's fine, I've already got that in, and then load the mat. We'll see if I can load the mat a little bit better this time. But what I am going to do, as that cut through my white pretty easily, is change it to be a medium cardstock setting instead. Let's give it a go. Hopefully I can get this in on the first try this time. Let's go in one sweeping motion. There, looks promising. My mat's loaded, so now I can press the go button and it will start cutting. That's all finished, so I can load it on my screen and then we'll see if it's cut through. Hopefully it has. Here we go, so I'm going to do that same trick. Turn it upside down and hold it flat, bend the mat backwards. And that has cut out beautifully. There we go, there are my 2 hearts. Now I'm going to repeat those same steps for my pink card. I'll do that off camera because it's the same as you've just seen me do for the red and the white. And then once I've got all that cut out, I'll show you how to finish the project in Design Space and then how to stick everything together. I've now finished cutting out of the pink, which means my project's finished. You can tell because all of the different colours down the left hand side now have a tick on them, and also the bottom has updated, so there's now a done button. I'll click on that and then it will take me back to my project. So finally, one more thing to do, and that's to get everything stuck together. Now that I've got all of the pieces of my heart cut out, it's time to stick them together. I like to use a combination of glue and foam squares so that I can give my paper crafts some dimension. With all of my paper crafts, if you look in the download folder that you originally got from my website, there is a file in there called Assembly Guide. Open that up and that will show you the order that all of the layers go in and whether I recommend sticking each one with glue or foam squares. If you don't have any foam squares, you can just use glue and it will still end up a beautiful papercraft project. What I like to do before I start sticking is to put everything in order following that assembly guide. You can print out the assembly guide if you want so that you've got it with you while you're crafting. So this one's pretty simple, it's only 4 pieces, so I can manage that one from memory. And there it is, so that's how it will look when it's all put together. The reason I like putting all the layers on top of each other first is that I can check I've not accidentally lost anything along the way, and also that I'm just happy with how all the colours look when they're on top of one another. Because sometimes colours look great when they're next to each other, but when you actually start stacking them, you might notice that maybe there's not as much contrast or difference as you wanted, or maybe some of the tones don't go together very well. But that is all looking lovely. Any type of glue that you would usually use with your papercraft projects is fine. My current favourite glue is Bearly Art Glue, and I like this because it has a very thin nozzle on it, so the glue comes out really, really slowly, and it comes with a needle to put in so it doesn't dry out. This is a white glue, so it doesn't have a smell to it, it's nice and quick to dry, and it doesn't bend or wrinkle the cardstock like some wet glues can do. For similar reasons, I also like Collall. This also doesn't bend or wrinkle the cardstock, but for this one, it comes with quite a big nozzle, so you'd probably want to buy some needle tip applicator bottles, which are tiny little bottles with little nozzles on to put the glue into, to make sure you can get it into all the little areas of your project without kind of spilling it or putting too much on. Collall is a solvent glue, so it does have a little bit of a smell to it, so bear that in mind, especially if you are sensitive to solvent products. Another glue I also quite like, but I don't use as much, is this Nuvo glue from Tonic Studios. These have a nice thin nozzle to them too, and it doesn't bend or wrinkle the card as long as you only use a little bit of it. If you use loads, it can have that wrinkling effect, which is why this one is third in my favourites. And also sometimes I found that they get a little bit clogged and hard to use, but generally this is still a great glue. I live in the UK and I get all of these glues online. Bearly Art Glue and Collall I buy on Amazon, and the Nuvo glue I buy direct from Tonic Studios. If you don't have any of those glues, that's absolutely fine, just use what you've got. The foam squares I like to use are from Dot and Dab. Again, I get these on Amazon. They come in different sizes, and these ones you can see are quite small. It tells you the size here. These are 5 by 5 millimeters, and these ones are double, so they're 10. So you can choose which one you use based on the size of the card that you're making. If you've only got larger foam squares, you can cut them smaller with scissors. These ones are both white, but you can also buy black foam squares, which can help if you're doing a darker paper craft project with lots of dark coloured layers, so that you can't see the edges of the foam when you turn the paper craft around. But generally, I don't really find that's a problem, even if I use the light ones on a black paper craft. You don't normally see them poking through unless you're looking really hard at it, which I don't think you would be that likely to do. With all of my paper craft projects, you'll start at the bottom and then work your way upwards. I'm going to move these pieces apart again and then start with this one. So if you look at the assembly guide, you'll see for this one, this is a glue layer. So I turn it around, so this is upside down, and add my glue. You want a good amount on here to make sure it'll be well stuck. And then put it in the middle of the frilly bit. And it's a bit hard to see because it's white card on a white table. Just wiggling that around to get it in the middle. There we go. If I put my hands under, you can see a little easier. And then for this design, that's the only glue one. So I'll add the needle tip back in my glue, put that to one side, and then get some foam squares for the rest. Next up is the pink heart, which will be done with the foam squares. So I turn it upside down and add some foam. Now this is quite a small piece of card, so I can get away with just 3 pieces. If your piece is bigger, you'll need more. If you have got a large piece, for example, something about this size, then you would want to add some foam squares in the middle as well as around the edge to make sure that you've got good stability across the whole shape for when you stick it on. If you don't add anything in the middle, you might find your card kind of bends downwards, domes downwards like that, where it's got nothing to support it. So adding a few extra foam squares in the middle really does make a difference on those larger bits of card. But this one's tiny, so 3 is just fine. Peel the tops off, and then you'll find that these are sticky underneath. You might want to keep a little pot or dish handy to get all of those little squares in, otherwise they tend to go everywhere. And then line that up just roughly in the middle, as close as you can get it, and push down to stick. And I got one little heart left. This is even smaller. I'll go for 2 bits of foam this time. And again, put that in the middle. And that's my heart done. It would then be ready to go on a greetings card, in a scrapbook, in a frame. You could add a little magnet on the back and put it on the fridge. There's so many things you could do. It would also make a nice gift tag if you maybe punched a hole in the top. So that was how to cut cardstock on your Cricut and get all of the layers stuck together once they're cut. Now that you've done your first cardstock project with your Cricut, I can't wait to see what you make next. Cardstock projects are my favourite, and I have over 1,000 different designs over at craftwithsarah.com. If you'd like to progress to some of the more complex layered designs that have more pieces in them, such as this fairy door design, then head to craftwithsarah.com/help. Choose Cricut from the list of machine options, and then there's a separate tutorial in there on how to make more detailed layered cardstock designs with your Cricut. So if you're not quite sure how to go from just a couple of pieces to loads and loads of colours and different pieces, that video is what I recommend watching next. But for now, thank you so much for watching along with me. Bye!